now introduce Dr. Carla Natalie Barnett, the Secretary General of the Caribbean Community. Dr. Barnett, PhD, CBE, became the 8th Secretary General of the CARICOM community on the 15th of August, 2021. Dr. Barnett is an economist who has worked across CARICOM for over 30 years. She was the first woman to be appointed as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Belize, and the first woman and youngest person to be appointed as Deputy Secretary General of CARICOM. She was also Vice President Operations at the Caribbean Development Bank. As a consultant, Dr. Barnett has provided advisory services in public sector financial planning and strategic planning throughout CARICOM. As a politician, Dr. Barnett contested the 2015 Belize general election and was a senator and a minister of state in the Belize government from 2015 to 2020. She is an advocate for gender equality. I have known of Dr. Barnett and has been able to witness her advocacy for over 15 years as the right thing to do. She understands gender equality is the right thing to do to create a more stable and equitable society, and as good economic policy. Gender equality is good for business. She has been an active member of the Caribbean Institute of Women in Leadership, Belize chapter. She attended the first meeting when this institution was first organized. She's a president of the Belize YWCA and on the board of Haven House, a shelter for battered women. Dr. Barnett has received several awards, including the Commander of the British Empire for distinguished public service. So it's my honor now to hand over to Dr. Barnett as she provides reflections on all of our fantastic women leaders' statements.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, my young Caribbean sister, Tony Broadba. You know, you date yourself. If I were to tell you that I knew her mother before her, then you would know. Prime Minister of Samoa, Honorable Naomi Mata'afa, Right Honorable Evelyn Weber-Crowes, Prime Minister of Aruba, Pacific Islands Forum Secretary General and Pacific Ocean Commissioner Henry Puna, Honorable Rosie Akbar of Fiji, other distinguished participants. It is such a pleasure to be here to listen to the strong women leaders who have taken the time to share some of the innovative strategies that they are leading the development of for our women, for our environment, and for our societies in a just and sustainable way. In Women's Month, which is coming to an end next week, there's a lot of discussion of women's issues and in varying contexts. And for those on this panel, I am sure you, like myself, would have been participating in several events and hearing some of these issues and contributing to some of the discussions. But this is something we can never tire of doing. These issues that women face bear repeating until we find effective strategies. With regard to the deepening impact of climate change, women are recognized as more vulnerable than men and boys, constituting, according to UN Women, 70% of the world's poor. Women are also 14 times more likely to die during disasters than men because of gender inequalities. Therefore, our plans, our projects, our policies should account for gender difference in their design and implementation so as not to reinforce, to exacerbate, or even to create greater gender inequalities. If we do not integrate the concerns of women in particular and the gender differences that need to be taken into account, we can contribute to greater gender inequalities. In fact, the linkage between gender and climate change is a key component of the Paris Agreement. While it is encouraging that there has been an increase in climate finance with a gender component, more effort is needed to ensure that it reaches those who need it most. There is, in fact, very little transparency about the quality, the specific focus, and the impacts of climate change that have a gender component. According to UN Women, again, of the global amounts available in current funding cycles through NGOs, only 0.2%, or US 43 million of the US 2.4 billion, is being made available to women-led and women's rights organizations. There are major hurdles regarding the transparency and accountability of climate finance that promote gender equality, particularly because of a lack of appropriate data. So one of the things we have to encourage, we have to foster, is the collection, the capturing of sex-aggregated data, gender statistics, and gender-responsive indicators. While some climate funds, like the Green Climate Fund and the Adaptation Fund, have made some strides, gender outcomes are not sufficiently integrated into the design, implementation, and monitoring of climate projects and programs to reduce gender vulnerabilities on the ground. So in all of the work that we heard today, in all of the work that we talk about, we need to ensure that moving forward, women's differentiated needs, knowledge, experiences must form a basis for the components that we use to inform investment in climate change and in the use of climate finance. But at an even broader level, we heard the call and we support the need to speak to the reality that access to climate finance is inequitable. It does not take into account the real vulnerabilities of SIDS, who do bear the largest burden of climate change, but are in fact responsible for an almost negligible contribution to the emissions that are the source of global warming that threaten the very existence of our countries and our peoples. As in the Pacific, the ocean climate nexus is important in the Caribbean. More than 50% of the Caribbean population live less than 1.5 kilometers from the shore, and every one of us is connected in some way to the sea. Like climate change generally, the health of the ocean has a differentiated impact on health and well-being. The pollution of the ocean affects all. However, we know that pregnant women and children are most sensitive to the toxic materials contained in fish, for example. And although women make up more than half of the workforce in processing, cleaning, and trading fish, in 2017, women accounted for only 20% of the fisherfolk. Typically, women in the fisheries sectors, like in other parts of the economy, are largely concentrated in the low-skilled, low-paid, seasonal jobs with lower levels of health, safety, and labor rights protection. So as we push for the development of the fisheries sectors, as some of us are doing, we need to ensure that we properly situate the role of women as workers in the fisheries industries and as operators of businesses in the fisheries sector. Gender equality considerations, therefore, also need to be mainstream in the development cooperation that we are involved in, targeting the oceans, supporting initiatives to protect coastal areas, and developing small-scale sustainable fishing that benefits local communities and help to decrease gender gaps. All of this, I believe, are important, and many of us in our countries, in the Caribbean and in the Pacific, are seeking to treat with the issues facing women as a result of climate change, and all of this needs to continue to be taken into account. And as I finish here, yes, Tony, I say it as often as I can, gender equality is good economic policy because, and it's wider than economic policy, it's good social and economic development policy, because when we promote the development of women, when we promote business women, women in business, what we are doing is promoting the sustainability of whole families, of whole communities, and therefore we continue to promote that. Thank you very much.